Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. Today, we have 176 companies in GSD representing 73 countries around the world. So with that, I'd like to bring my esteemed guest, Wasim Dayer. He's a co-founder of Pilot, a modern finance team offering the best bookkeeping, tax, and CFO services for growing businesses. You can think of him as your financial back office, a perfect solution for startups, e-commerce, and professional service companies. He's an engineer by trade and co-founded and sold a couple of companies while studying actually at MIT in 2011. He did Ksplice, which was acquired by Oracle, Zulip, which was acquired by Dropbox in 2014. In addition to running pilots, he writes about building and growing startups a few times a week on LinkedIn, and every once in a while in a newsletter called Startup Real Talk. That's fantastic. By the way, for all of you out there, this is our little over 1,300 podcasts, and we're closing in on 1 million views. So it's great to be here, and thanks to all of you for helping us. So with that, I'd like to bring Wasim on. Hi, Wasim.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you today. So tell me a little bit about it. So where are you from originally? Are you from the Bay Area, or where are you from? You went to MIT, or were you from
Yeah,
Boston?
East Coast kid. I grew up in the DC area, and then I was at MIT for college, and then we did our previous startups, both Ksplice and Zulip in Cambridge and Boston.
Hey, Cambridge, I actually have had MIT MBAs inside of GSD. So I actually have one of those companies budget wise, which is he's an MBA, actually undergraduate degree in engineering. So tell me a little bit about it. How was it going to MIT? Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it. It was incredible.
So what was the thing you liked the best?
Oh, the other people. I mean, I think, you're just surrounded by other nerds like you who are super smart, who are excited to just like go deep on stuff in the same way you are. It's really, really, really magical.
So what was the magic? Tell me a little bit about it. What are like some things that you said, this is just incredible?
I think just like the sheer intellectual horsepower of everyone you interact with, the professors obviously, but also like the students you take classes with, your dorm mates, like just like any random person you encounter, just the sheer horsepower that they have. And then they're deeply interested in something that may or may not be what you're interested in, but actually that it's just I have always been a big fan of folks who get really excited about something kind of regardless of what that thing is.
And so you did that. Then you went. You were a software engineering intern at Devis, and you went to AOL. How was that? Because that was like AOL was going backwards a little bit then, right? And
So
you did.
those were all summer internships. So this was like summer 2003, I think. It was like my end of my freshman year. So it was my first sort of real like more big company software job. So it was very interesting to kind of get the industry experience over the summers while at MIT. And then it was actually right out of school that my co-founders and I, who were all classmates together, when we started our first venture.
So every summer you went. You were at AOL, Devis, Google, and OkCupid. So
And
that's
Amazon as well one summer.
and Amazon as well. And so that was some of the magic of doing the MIT thing. You did a lot of internships. That's good because that really helps dramatically increase the probability of success coming out, right, and getting the right kind of job. And then you did Ksplice, develop a technology to update running Linux without requiring a reboot. How was that doing your first startup?
So it was my co-founder Jeff Arnold's master's thesis at MIT, and it was really his brainchild, the whole thing, where he's like, okay, he's an incredible technologist. He's like, I've built this thing to solve my own problem. It seems really valuable. I want to start a company around it. And he was really the ringleader that brought everyone together. And my perspective was like, I knew I wanted to do a startup. I think I didn't really have strong views about exactly what. I in some ways I cared more about working with the right team. And so that's kind of how it all started. And we all lived in like, a crappy little row house in Central Square and ate a lot of ramen and all that stuff.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah. I mean, very stressful, but also like very fun. It's just like the thing that's kind of amazing about startups is every job has stuff you like doing and stuff you don't like doing. And that's true of a startup too. But the thing that's powerful about a startup is it's clear why you need to do the stuff you don't like doing. And I find that very motivational. It's like, well, actually, someone needs to take out the trash because it smells in this office. And like, yeah, you don't like taking out the trash. No one likes taking out the trash, but it's clear why it needs to be done. So in that way, it's very motivating on the tasks you might otherwise not be that excited about.
Yeah, but that's life, isn't it? Right? We always have the good and bad, the things that we have to go through, and if you focus, I did a TED talk a while back about thinking positive, optimism, passion. Those kind of things are critically important for startup success, and sometimes we forget about the soft side of building a startup because it ain't easy, right? And as a former clinical psychologist, I can tell you directly, going down through it, my master's degree, my graduate school was actually psychology, undergraduate degree in business. And when I went through it, I'm like, this is, I didn't want to finish it for my PhD because I didn't like it. And I don't want to go to medical school because I thought I don't want to extend what I have there. But I thought it was fascinating. And that's a lot of what building a startup's all about, right? 9 out of 10 companies fail. It's not because they don't have the right product. It's because they don't have the operational expertise, the access to capital, and network and contacts. Contacts are critically important. I've been an MBA professor myself in one of the top schools in Europe, personally, and marketing professor. One of the things that happened there was that I understood the contact network was important, right? But the experience was critically important. The network, haven't done it a few times. You going down through this. So you did Zulip, which is a group collaboration tool for businesses. How was that? You did it. You sold it to Dropbox.
To Dropbox.
Yeah. How was it?
So each of the companies that we did were born out of problems that we ourselves had. So as I said, for the first company, CaseBlaze, my co-founder Jeff, it was his master's thesis, and he worked on it because having to install software updates was a problem he had when he was administering systems at MIT. And actually, there was one specific incident where a new software update came out, and he's like, "Okay, I'll schedule some downtime to install it, over the weekend on Saturday night or something, so that the system users aren't getting disrupted." And in between the time the update came out and when he had a chance to install the update, a hacker had taken advantage of the vulnerability that the update would have fixed to compromise the system. And so that really got him thinking. He said, oh, well, there's got to be a better way, right? There's got to be a way that we can apply these software updates without rebooting. And that was the genesis of CaseBlaze. Now, Zulip was a group chat tool. This was a time when I think Slack was still making a mobile game, and the state of the art was like IRC or Campfire or some of these other products. And our strong feeling and experience from working at CaseBlaze was, okay, the market needs a robust, kind of high quality, performant chat tool for businesses. And so we said, okay, we're going to scratch our own itch. This doesn't exist. We're going to build the thing we wish existed. And then, of course, that the same thing is true of Pilot, which is Pilot. We do accounting and tax prep for startups and other companies. And the reason we built it is because this was a huge pain for us in our previous ventures. It's we struggled with, okay, how do we deal with this stuff? Why can't we find a firm that really knows anything about startups, that is like startup native and fluent like we are, that gets the act of starting something new? And so we said, okay, fine, we just have to make it. So that's the through line of our very, very different ventures, right? Like Linux kernel updates is very different than group chat, is very different than accounting, but all of them were solving problems that we ourselves very viscerally had.
And so you've gone down through it. So walk me through this. So how does it work? Does it automate the process or does it connect you with the resources?
At Pilot, so the story with Pilot is we employ a bunch of accountants who are full-time US-based employees of ours who generally sit in our office in Nashville. So it's not a marketplace. It's not like an Uber style. It's like these folks are all full-time employees of ours that sit in our offices. And we're here to help out with your accounting and tax prep. So one piece is we have this amazing team at your service. Another piece is we built a bunch of software that helps us do the work more reliably, more consistently, more automatically, but also software that helps us correspond with you or helps you kind of get what you need. And so the way you should think about Pilot is you hire us instead of hiring the accounting firm down the street. And we scratch all those same itches for you, except we're doing it in this tech-enabled, kind of tech-native way. Meaning we're not going to ask you to send us like the PDF export from the blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we'll just connect to that system and pull it in automatically. We're not going to ask you questions about how does Stripe work because we just connect to it and do it automatically. We have built a bunch of deep integrations to allow us to do a bunch of the work so that you don't have to. And then we're able to draw from all the knowledge and experience we have serving, thousands and thousands and thousands of clients of various sizes and stages. And I think that's really the magic of Pilot, which is we're already one of the largest accounting firms. We're the largest startup-focused accounting firm in the US. And this is the smallest we'll ever be. And so I think the thing that's interesting to us is, okay, we can bring that kind of expertise and quality to bear at scale so that your new startup, you can take advantage of that, whether you're in San Francisco or whether you're in, anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. And then what about the, some of the nuances? Like we actually have a very streamlined service inside of GSD where we work with QuickBooks. It goes right to the accountant that I've worked with in many startups. It's such a streamlined system, that even with credit cards and everything else, we don't have any of those issues coming into it. How do you differ from like a QuickBooks? What value do you have? I have somebody inputting my stuff into QuickBooks, right?
Well, I think you just answered the question, which is QuickBooks is a piece of accounting software.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we actually provide the service end to end. We're not saying here's a piece of software you have to go and touch and update. We are doing all that work for you.
Yeah, but we don't touch it either. We have the person that actually does it for us actually does all the inputting. I actually don't touch it at all. It goes right to my accountant. My account goes down through and the bookkeeper, QuickBooks, the accountant. So how much do you charge for your service? What is the pricing per month? What does it run or per year?
It varies. And for the simple at the low end, it's as low as $149 a month. Mm-hmm. And then we have customers that pay us, many thousands of dollars a month, depending on the complexity, because we work with, a founder in a garage, and we work with, a 200-person company with a VP of finance and a controller and a CFO.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. So you can scale. And what about legal? Have you thought about that?
It's not something we do today. We can definitely connect you with a number of great lawyers in our network. We're really laser focused on what we call the financial back office. So accounting, tax prep, R&D credit, AP and AR, fractional CFO, that kind of thing.
And you provide fractional. What's a fractional CFO look like?
So this is we pair you with just a super sharp, probably like former investment banker, former venture capitalist type person who can help you out with board decks, financial models, that kind of thing.
I got it. Okay, super. So what's where are you now? And what are the plans? What does it look like for the future? What's the next 5 years look like at Pilot?
Well, so we started the company in 2017. And today, kind of as I mentioned, we're the largest startup-focused accounting provider in the US and probably in the world. And it's really just like further doubling down on that, meaning how can we make this the obvious choice for startup founders? You start your company, you incorporate it, however you incorporate it, maybe use Clerky, Stripe Atlas, whatever, use one of these services. We want you to be our next call, which is we want to be the folks that say, listen, you want to focus on building your product or service. Let us take care of the tricky compliance finance stuff. So there's the corporate taxes, Delaware franchise tax, all that stuff. So really just building out kind of a robust set of offerings around that. And then also just trying to be as helpful as possible to startup founders that are out there. So like one thing we did recently and one thing we've done every year now, several years in a row, we have a thing called the Founder Salary Report, where I think like one very common question for founders is, what should I pay myself? And there isn't good market data on this until kind of we started doing it. So we surveyed, nearly 2,000 founders from across industries and funding stages and regions. And we say, okay, cool. What are folks doing by industry, by region, by amount raised, so that you, either when you're talking just among yourselves or with your investors, kind of get a good baseline of, oh, yeah, this is a reasonable amount for me to be paying myself as a founder. So we tried it in addition to obviously doing the accounting and the tax prep. I think one of the things that makes us special is because of the scale we operate at, we can help out with a little bit more of this value add, like, oh yeah, here's what we're seeing in the market, or this is what the best practice is, and therefore like you should think about doing thing X or doing thing Y.
What about like staffing services and that kind of thing? Did you think about changing the model a little bit? And then because those same startups are going to need staff, right?
Yeah. So what we have found on the accounting or the finance side is that we're generally able to do a good job scratching all of your itches there. Meaning, if you need help with AP or AR or payroll or whatever, like we can help out with that stuff. Um, so the way we kind of frame it is we should be basically the last external accounting firm you need to hire until you're really truly ready to build and bring the function in house.
Got it. So tell me a little bit about it. So, it's an interesting point from my perspective. So we have a couple of those companies that we talked to at GSD, whether they're portfolio companies or ours, or they're companies from the outside. But we look at it as really hub because it's not just about accounting; it's about everything else that the startup needs too. Because the same startup's going to need sales, marketing, business development. The other thing is, if you haven't built a few companies, and you haven't gone through the pain and torture of it and the rewards of it, you don't know what it's like, right? You can't go to Harvard and get your MBA and understand how to build a startup because it's diametrically opposed to what a startup building's like. And so we have Harvard MBAs and Stanford MBAs inside of GSD and MIT MBAs. They come to us after they do a couple of deals, right? They've had a couple of exits. They come to us on the scaling side. We're a family office, by the way, on that side of it. We're a scaling family office. And we see the other part of it is, so how about with the VCs? Are you playing with the VCs at all? Are they recommending it for their companies? Or because that seems like that would be a good thing, right? Everybody's got a problem with accounting. Everybody's got a problem with legal, right? They don't set the companies up right. They don't do the cap tables right. What about the financial models? Can you do financial models and things for them too?
Absolutely, absolutely. And a bunch of our business comes from VC firms. It's like the Andreessens or the Sequoias or whoever. There's kind of a robust referral motion there because it's in everyone's interest, right? It's in the investor's interest to make sure that the company has a good handle on where all the funds are going. It's the company's interest, of course, in not getting scary letters from the IRS. And so there's a very robust referral motion there.
Yeah, I mean that's and but here's the other thing. They don't know what they don't know, Wasim. So these startups a lot of time don't understand when you're getting started because you don't know that your company is going to be $1 billion company when you get started, right? It could be something entirely different. I think a number of examples right from my office where the company started out and all of a sudden they're $1 billion company and they didn't set it up like that. So how do you deal
Definitely.
with it? So what happens when a company comes into you and you look at they're coming up to a Series A, but they're still running a company like they're in their garage? What do you do for them?
Yeah, so we think a lot about kind of what is stage appropriate, meaning, okay, for your size and stage and scale, what is the right amount of financial sophistication that you have? Like if you're two people and it's a pre-seed round, you should not probably have all of the machinery of the Series B company. And so it's really about, okay, fine, what are the best practices we need to get in place now? How do we lay down a good foundation that can grow with you when you need it? And I think this is actually like a very common failure mode for other firms. They either have no idea what they're doing and they don't lay the foundation down correctly because your uncle's friend's neighbors was a bookkeeper and yeah, they were, but they worked with restaurants or something and not tech startups. So that's not a good fit. Or they super heavily over engineer it because they charge you by the hour and the more they work, the more you pay. And so I think we have a lot of really good taste around, okay, what is the right thing for you at this stage, both now and as you grow, where it's kind of like Goldilocks, right? You don't want to do too much, you don't want to do too little. You have to get it just right.
No, you don't know when to do much or too little. But so let's talk about it. So let's talk about a pre-seed. Let's talk about a Series A, Series B. What different services should a company come to you for at a pre-seed? What should they
Sure.
come out of Series A or a seed or Series A?
Yeah. So from the very beginning, I think there are sort of a couple consumers of the finance. Like, why do you do bookkeeping, accounting, and stuff in the very early days? Well, one important reason is you don't want to get in trouble with IRS. So you need to do your tax prep. Whether you've made any money, even if you have no revenue, you're not going to pay any tax, but you still need to file the tax return. So there's stuff
Mhm.
like the federal corporate income tax, state corporate income tax, Delaware franchise tax filings, things like that. So when folks come to us super early, we say, well, look, we definitely want to make sure we're checking the box on the compliance side. We got to do your taxes. And to do your taxes, we have to do some lightweight bookkeeping for you. The other thing that kind of the early stage companies
That's a good
got.
point, Wasim. Tell us a little bit about it because it's really important for startups, right? So the bookkeeping can be light or it saves your life, right? Because you get into it, all my stuff's taken from the banks and goes over, and so I have an automated system pretty much. But tell us a little bit about it. How important is it for the startup to start right from the beginning, setting these structures in place?
So it's much easier to do it right from the get-go than
Mm-hmm.
to have to go back and kind of retroactively do it or rip it out and put into place the good thing. And look, of course we do both, meaning people come to us with garbage all the time and we have to say, listen, we're just going to kind of wipe the slate clean and do this right for you. But what's interesting, and I think what most founders don't appreciate is if it is going well, you are not going to magically have more free time later to go fix this stuff. If anything, right now is the most free time you will ever have. And a
Mm-hmm.
consequence of that is like it is worth making the initial investment to get it right. On the bookkeeping side, what I really say for the early stage company is the most critical things. Two things. One is three things maybe. Clean separation of business and personal expenses because the IRS doesn't like when you don't do that. The second is if you're going to pay people, making sure you're doing it. Yeah, if they're W-2 employees, make sure you're paying them with a payroll system so that all the right payroll tax withholding and all that stuff happens.
And
And then the third,
the legal ramifications of not doing it, especially if you're in California, right?
absolutely.
Nothing,
I mean, it's
nothing
just
good's going to happen.
huge mess. It's just it. The government doesn't like when you do that if you don't do it. So make sure you do it right. And the third thing is like you just have to have a good handle on the business's cash position. Like you have to know, well, how much money do we have and how fast are we spending it? And to just answer that question, like you could always just like log into the bank account and look. You don't necessarily need super robust, balance sheet and P&L and all that stuff, but actually like getting into place the infrastructure that allows you to easily at a glance see, okay, how much do I have? How much is coming in? How much is going out? When am I going to run out of money? Like is extremely important in the early days. If you don't know when you're going to run out of money, guess what's going to happen? One day you're going to wake up and you will be out of money and you will be very surprised. So I think that
Yeah,
pre-seed,
nothing
those
good
are the
happens
critical.
if you don't know what your runway is like, right?
You
These are
got to
like
know.
101. It's critically important. But let's go up through it. So we go to seed stage and then we go to Series A. What's important in Series A?
Well, Series A, I mean, now you have some real investors. You probably have some people on the board. They're going to want to get much more serious about not just how much cash do you have, but kind of like what are the business's metrics? Like what is your cost to acquire a customer? What is the lifetime value of the customer? What is your retention looking like? Where do you think it's going to go? Like start to build out a model or a forecast. And that's really kind of where our CFO services comes into play, which is like, okay, what are the key financial and operating metrics of our business? How do we make sure we have good visibility into them? And how do we
Mhm.
ideally start to develop good predictive power about where they're trending? And what does that imply? Like, okay, fine. If we think we're going to end the year at X revenue, like, what does that let us do now versus if we end the year at Y revenue? And like kind of having a good plan there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And keeping a handle on that, the finance part's critically important, but the magic behind it. And, I don't know about you, Wasim, but, for me, a lot of the VCs, they don't spend a lot of time on the front end with the companies. They spend hours, right? And the limited partners in the funds are high net worth individuals, insurance companies, pension funds. They tell you you're going to be married for 7 to 10 years, but they're spending 3 hours with you on the front end. Not all of them, but many of them. How in the world you would never go out on a date if you're going to be married? You're not going out on a date for 3 hours and marry somebody. You don't even know who they are. It's very interesting for me, right? And I've been doing this for 38 years, so I've seen a lot of times, and all the way up to doing an IPO on NASDAQ. And it's interesting. And yet at the same time, they say, the story is the most important thing. Only 10% of the VCs have ever built companies. They're trying to tell you based on financial. It's crazy. Actually crazy. It doesn't make sense. And so, when we're a family office and we work with a lot of the other family offices, and I look inside of it myself, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's like going to a Ferrari mechanic, and you go into the Ferrari mechanic, and then you say, well, here's my Ferrari, and he says to you back, well, I fix motorcycles. I don't know anything about Ferraris, But you're a mechanic. That's not how it works. We got to go down through the system's got to change. Wasim. Like seriously, it's got to change. This isn't right. And I hear it all over the world. 9 out of 10 companies fail. It's because of those three things: operational expertise, network and contacts, access to capital. And my companies in GSD, we have 176 companies now, right? Startups. Those companies, those, and some of them are taking off. One just raised $100 million. So, but putting the foundation, the financial foundation, the legal framework in place and building that, if you don't do that, nothing good's going to happen. Nothing good. One time I didn't do it, right? Early on in my career, I didn't do it right. It cost me $100,000 to fix it. And it was something stupid. I listened to my partner who had done a couple of exits, and he told me, hey, don't worry about this. And I'm like, are you sure? Oh, yeah, it's not a big deal. And it turned out to be a huge deal. Huge. So, I hear what you're saying. So, get your financial framework done. The other thing is, as you're building your company, don't get crazy in terms of hiring sales and marketing people before you have your product defined and you've done your customer development. That's the big thing, especially with technology founders, ones that have engineering degrees, right? The first thing it says, I need salespeople or marketing, and you don't even know what you have. And so understanding these are lessons you learn from the school of hard knocks. You don't get them in graduate school. So, I love what you're doing. I've been through the pain myself, and I had to learn the hard way because I didn't used to put the systems quite in place. But when you take a company that scales up and you're going on unicorn status, it changes everything because all of a sudden everybody wants to know what your DAOs and MAOs and everything else are, right? And what's your runway look like? You can't just, close your eyes and throw a dart and say, this is where it's going to go. It doesn't work like that. So, I love what you're doing. It's great. So, listen, we're coming to the top of the show, Wasim. What are your closing thoughts and how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn and, are pretty active there. So definitely check out my stuff and feel free to send me a message. Just my username on LinkedIn is W.Daher. And then if folks ever want to shoot me an email, I'm just Waseem@pilot.com. So I'm not very hard to get a hold of.
No, that's great. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I'll jump back on after we close out the show. I'll jump back on here. And to all of you out there, thank you for joining one more time. GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, everybody.